On this Wednesday night, fighting the fourth wave. Hospitals in several provinces struggling to cope with climbing COVID cases.
Our ability to provide comprehensive care has collapsed.
The warnings and regrets from Alberta's top doctor. Canadians' cost of living climbs to an 18-year high. From gas to groceries, how big will those bills become? The thirst for change on a Manitoba First Nation. Clean drinking water for the first time in decades. And the peculiar path from Secret Service to public life.
I was in the shadows for so many years.
The former officer with CSIS now vying to be an MP.
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Jeff Semple.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. COVID-19 cases are climbing across the country and premiers are now grappling with how to control the latest wave without rolling back reopening plans. New Brunswick just had its highest single-day jump of the pandemic with 63 new cases. Saskatchewan has 475 new cases today, its second highest number after yesterday's record tally. Nearly 20% of those new cases are in children under 12, too young to be vaccinated. Saskatchewan and Alberta now have among the highest COVID-19 case rates in the country and the lowest vaccination rates. As Heather Yourex-West explains, doctors warn health systems are again on the brink of collapse.
Bryn Marks is determined to stay positive. The Edmonton teenager has an incurable lung disease and was supposed to have surgery next week to improve her quality of life. But
we got the call yesterday that it has been cancelled pretty much indefinitely.
As Alberta struggles to care for what is now a record number of COVID patients in the ICU, thousands of elective surgeries have been cancelled across the province.
Our ability to provide comprehensive care has collapsed. And I know that in the last couple of weeks, there were 15 or 20 big cancer cases that had to be postponed. Those patients could be affected by this. It could end up shortening their lives.
In neighboring Saskatchewan, surgeries are being cancelled too, a consequence of a summer free of restrictions. Both provinces lifted all measures back in July. In a candid web conference with family doctors Tuesday, Alberta's chief medical health officer admitted that was a mistake.
I think if we look at the experiences of all of the different provinces across the country, those that have kept in some base level restrictions to manage the interactions and close contacts are the ones that are not seeing the significant impact.
A lesson perhaps for the rest of the country, but for Alberta and Saskatchewan, the time to act is now.
You don't just magically put this genie back in the bottle. You have to act quickly in order to reduce that exponential spread.
Saskatchewan has yet to impose even a mandatory mask mandate, and vaccine passports aren't in use in either province, though Alberta's government is expected to announce new measures later today.
What we've been doing is not working. Everybody can see that. Lots of examples of increasing suffering, increasing suboptimal outcomes, and for sure increasing deaths.
An insufficient response to the fourth wave, creating a crisis now affecting thousands beyond those sick with COVID-19.
I don't focus on me, but it is important for other kiddos to get that treatment and be safe.
Heather Yourex-West, Global News, Calgary.
With just days to go in the federal election campaign, the race appears to be tightening. Ipsos polling done for Global News shows the Liberals and Tories are in a dead heat, each with about 32% support. Erin O'Toole is promising a more progressive Conservative Party. But as Mike Le Couteur explains, some party members are muddying that message.
We're not your dad's Conservative Party anymore.
In the waning days of this campaign, Erin O'Toole is trying to rebrand his team. But to help, the party brought out a grandfather of modern conservatism, Brian Mulroney.
He will bring honour and accomplishment to the position of Prime Minister of Canada.
The endorsement of the former progressive Conservative Prime Minister comes as the party is trying to move past controversies involving climate change and vaccination. Cheryl Gallant was forced to take down videos denying climate science, and Tuesday, Conservative Ted Falk was forced to apologize for spreading misinformation about vaccines, claiming you were 13 times more likely to die from the Delta variant if you were double vaccinated than if you were unvaccinated.
The candidate in question apologized and clarified the record.
So, about that rebranding?
I am a new leader with a new style. I've said that many times.
Here in Quebec, a resurgence of the Bloc Québécois could stunt any gains the Conservatives were hoping to make. But senior party sources tell Global News they feel more seats for the Bloc mean fewer for the Liberals, possibly paving the way for a Conservative government. Jeff?
Thanks, Mike. And that tightening race could also change how Canadians vote. Instead of choosing the candidate they support, people may choose to vote strategically. But as Robin Gill explains, the NDP leader hopes that people will vote based on their values.
Jagmeet Singh is on your side. That's what the New Democrats want voters to believe. But two NDP candidates have left his side just ahead of Election Day.
These candidates made a decision to leave. I think that was the right decision.
Toronto's Sydney Coles tweeted unsubstantiated claims that Israel had taken away supplies of the COVID-19 vaccine. Then there's Nova Scotia's Dan Osborne. Back in 2019, he apparently tweeted at Oprah Winfrey, asking, was Auschwitz a real place? The party says both agreed to learn more about anti-Semitism, but Singh didn't demand they quit. Now he's left to apologize for them.
Anti-Semitism is real. We're seeing a scary rise.
But this doesn't appear to be hurting the New Democrats, according to party strategists. They're holding steady with 21% support from those polled.
It feels like the NDP vote is more solid than it's been in the past when it comes to the strategic voting play of the Liberals. The likability factor, Jagmeet Singh is the most popular leader out there right now.
The NDP leader is resonating the most in British Columbia, third place in Ontario, and essentially in last place in Quebec. Its greatest threat is a familiar one, bleeding progressive votes to the Liberals, who stand a better chance of forming government. For now, Singh is still playing offense.
There is a cost to voting for Mr. Trudeau.
The NDP has the opportunity here to hold the balance of power in this tight race. Pollsters say don't discount those advance votes because they account for 25% of the ballot count. And there's one other factor, more mail-in ballots this time around. Jeff?
Thanks, Robin. This campaign has turned particularly ugly at times. As Abigail Beeman reports, candidates of all stripes are facing verbal and even physical aggression.
2 people have been charged, in one case assault with a weapon, in another uttering threats after 2 separate Justin Trudeau Ontario campaign events. Monday, Sudbury Liberal candidate Mark Soaring was pinned against a wall in his campaign office. A woman who now faces charges allegedly hit his hands to stop him from recording her and later confronted him at his car, banging on the hood.
I've always done positive campaigns, but it's been a challenging few weeks.
A growing list of candidates have experienced hate and vandalism along the trail.
It's a small, narrow group of people that are obviously frustrated about our government's strong position in fighting against COVID.
I have felt anger and hate. Many of my signs have been vandalized. My constituency office storefront has been vandalized. The police are involved.
And it's not just Liberals.
Without a mask on, they pushed one of our volunteers, took a swing at them and then spit in their face. It was a very serious incident.
This Conservative candidate in Kitchener says police are investigating. We've seen many Trudeau protesters hold People's Party of Canada signs. In condemning the Trudeau stone thrower, leader Maxime Bernier says he's not immune and had an egg thrown at him.
I had a brick thrown through my window at home. I was called all kinds of names. I mean, that's fairly standard operating procedure.
Former Deputy Prime Minister Sheila Kopp says what's different now is social media's power to help mobilize rage.
I think the number of incidents and the boldness of the people that are tracking the Prime Minister is quite scary.
It's all about the social media ecosystem, in particular, I think, in the echo chambers that are built up there, that people, find themselves, inadvertently being pulled into some of these venues.
No one has a catch-all answer about where all this hate is coming from. I asked Trudeau whether he's telling candidates to step up safety or security considerations. He said, absolutely. Abigail Beeman, Global News, Fredericton.
Global News has learned exclusive new details involving the military police investigation into Canada's former defence chief. General Jonathan Vance will not face any further charges. Mercedes Stephenson joins us now with the details. Mercedes.
Jeff, Canada's former top soldier, retired General Jonathan Vance, is above the law. Military law, that is. That's according to the Department of National Defence. Global News has learned that the military justice system is unable to prosecute Vance due to his high rank, meaning Vance is untouchable by military courts. A senior source told Global News it would not be possible to prosecute Vance or any other chief of the defense staff in a court-martial for a breach of military law, including sexual misconduct. That would also apply to Admiral Art MacDonald, the chief of the defense staff who had to step aside amid a probe into sexual misconduct. The military justice system requires the judge to outrank the accused, and nobody outranks a four-leaf general or admiral. That means the most powerful officers in the military cannot be held accountable by their own justice system. An indictment of the system and a concern victims and experts have raised repeatedly, that sexual misconduct was endemic at the senior levels of the forces, in part due to a perception of invincibility. Government and military officials had dismissed the concerns about the military justice system's ability to hold senior officers accountable. Vance is still facing a charge of obstructing justice in criminal court, the result of a police investigation that alleges he instructed Major Kelly Brennan to lie about their past relationship. A senior source told Global News a charge in the criminal justice system was the only option investigators could pursue. In a recent report, retired Supreme Court Justice Maurice Fish warned that the military justice system may not be able to deliver justice when the accused holds the rank of lieutenant general or higher. The question now is whether the next government will create an independent military watchdog that reports to Parliament, something both Conservative leader Erin O'Toole and NDP leader Jagmeet Singh committed to. Liberal leader Justin Trudeau would not commit to that yet when asked today, saying he was waiting on the advice of experts. Jeff?
All right, Mercedes Stephenson in Ottawa, thanks. Well, get ready to dig deeper. Coming up, soaring inflation, why your grocery bill is going up. Affordability is one of the top issues for voters, and Statistics Canada confirms the cost of living is climbing fast. The inflation rate hit 4.1% last month, the highest level since back in 2003. And Gaviola has more on what's driving that inflation increase.
You can blame a housing market gone wild in many parts of the country, but the cost of living is also climbing because of the pandemic recovery. Prices at the pumps are going up as economies around the world reopen, so-called revenge travel as people shell out for vacations after being cooped up. And the rising price of almost every type of food. You've probably noticed it on your grocery bill.
We've never shut down whole sections of the economy before and then reopened them all at the same time, as has been happening. So this is a very unusual situation.
We recognize that families are concerned about affordability.
The issue was front and center today on the campaign trail.
I think Mr. Trudeau is going to cost you. I also think Mr. O'Toole is going to cost you.
The Conservatives blame the Liberals, claiming they've let inflation run rampant and that unprecedented government spending is worsening the situation. But fighting inflation is the purview of the central bank, and global forces are behind the inflationary trend.
Inflation is even higher in the United States than it is here. So I don't know how they could blame that on Mr. Trudeau.
Food inflation wasn't the biggest driver, but researchers at Dalhousie's Agri-Food Lab, which tracks prices, say the official data doesn't capture the extent of it. We're on track to see the average family shell out nearly $700 more for groceries this year, the biggest increase yet. And this is happening alongside so-called shrinkflation, where packaged amounts of food get smaller. It's a less obvious way to make you pay more.
Analysts say food inflation boils down to COVID-related supply chain issues, rising prices for wheat, corn, and other staples, which impact all kinds of other foods, labor issues, and climate change.
I actually think it's a little unfair to blame the current government for food inflation.
You can manage it by trimming what you spend on food and cutting back on driving. Every little bit helps. As economists predict, elevated inflation is here to stay for the rest of the year and beyond. Anne Gaviola, Global News, Toronto.
Still ahead, the long road to clean drinking water for a First Nation. Welcome back. For the first time in more than 2 decades, Shoal Lake 40 First Nation has clean running water. As Marnie Bunt explains, it marks the end of one of Canada's longest boil water advisories.
A new day and a new sense of hope on Shoal Lake 40 First Nation, nestled on the Manitoba-Ontario border. There is joy and relief here in marking the end of a 24-year boil water advisory.
The emotions running through today is like, it's unbelievable. Also, it's about that time.
The community opening a new water treatment plant and finally turning on the taps. Clean drinking water for the first time in decades, despite living on the lake that is the source of Winnipeg's water supply.
We struggled for over 2 years with bottled water and deliveries, and the reality of the project coming to an end is surreal.
A milestone for a community also opening a new school this week, all made possible following the opening of Freedom Road 2 years ago, a 14-kilometre gravel stretch connecting the once cut-off community to the Trans-Canada Highway. Before then, travel in and out came only by barge or ice road.
It's heartwarming, actually, to be a witness here and being a part of it, and this is where I'm from.
We finally have that water where we don't have to boil it in order to drink it.
Shoal Lake is one of 105 First Nations communities the federal government has pledged to lift long-term boil water advisories on, a promise that's been a long time coming.
And want to acknowledge that this should never have happened in the first place. There is no excuse that the federal government can present for any First Nation being on a long-term water advisory in a country such as ours.
Now, Shoal Lake has a new sense of hope and a new beginning.
I'm just speechless.
And a clear path to a better future. Marnie Blunt, Global News, Shoal Lake on the Manitoba-Ontario border.
Back in 2015, the federal Liberals promised to end all boil water advisories on First Nations by March of this year. Many have been lifted, but 51 communities still do not have clean drinking water. On Monday, Liberal Party leader Justin Trudeau was asked about his party's efforts towards Indigenous reconciliation during an interview with Global BC's Neethu Garcha. Here's a bit of that exchange.
I did speak to Tecumseh Chief Roseanne Casimir this weekend, and she calls your government's pace of change meaningfully when it comes to reconciliation glacial, and the amount that you have prioritized reconciliation so far in this campaign, contrary to what you just said, completely disappointing. What do you say to her and other Indigenous people across this country that feel the same way?
I agree with the impatience that people feel. I agree with the impatience that Indigenous people feel, because I feel it too. We need to be moving as fast as possible, but it's not just for the federal government to decide we're going to do this, we're going to do that. We have to work with the communities.
Next, one candidate's unique path to politics. Thousands of Canadians are putting their names on the ballot for Monday's election, including dozens of first-time candidates, each with their own unique reasons for their political ambitions. Mike Armstrong has the story of one candidate's journey from Secret Service to public servant.
It's exciting.
There is something completely different about running for office and what Huda Mukbil used to do for a living. Campaigning means putting your name and face all over. That was something she absolutely didn't do, working as an intelligence officer with Canada's spy agency.
I was in the security and intelligence world in the shadows for so many years. Hi, I'm running for the next federal election.
Campaigning is about as public as it gets. Mukbil's old job was about as private as it gets. She spent 15 years at CSIS, the Canadian Security Intelligence Service.
I was not in the public eye at all.
Were you even able to tell people you work for CSIS?
No, my immediate family knew, but my friends and members of the community and no one knew. My family fled civil war in Ethiopia.
Mukbill's life is now a pretty open book as a first-time candidate running for the NDP. The main issues that pushed her into politics, she says, are systemic racism and a lack of representation. The same issues that pushed her out of CSIS.
It was hard. You know, what I went through was really hard. And
Mukbill was part of a lawsuit along with 4 other employees against CSIS. They accused the organization of harassment and discrimination. It was eventually settled out of court, and the CSIS director has admitted the agency's culture needs to evolve.
This year, they're hiring the most diverse class they ever have at CSIS. So my work there is done. I have had the opportunity.
Mukbill is now hoping to take those issues to Parliament, but to get there she'll need an upset. She's running against a Liberal incumbent who's won 6 elections in a row. It won't be easy, and it's a big change.
Yeah.
She's literally gone from no one knowing the job she had to everyone knowing the job she wants. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Ottawa.
And Donna Friesen will anchor our extensive coverage on Election Night Monday right here on Global Television, as well as on History, Global News Radio, and various online platforms, including globalnews.ca. And tomorrow, Donna will broadcast from the last stop on our road trip ahead of the election from Brampton, Ontario. That's Global National for this Wednesday. I'm Jeff Semple. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.